Hello, my name is Gus Tugendhat, and I'm the founder of a company called Tussell. And Tussell is a data provider on UK government contracts and spending. And we have come together with Barber ABI in a simple commercial partnership in order to better meet the needs of construction companies that want to take advantage of the historic growth in the UK public sector, which is a growth that all of us are witnessing across the board, and which certainly applies to procurement of construction services. All of you on the call, or most of you, I presume, are already customers of Barber ABI, and as such, you would qualify for a discount on a companion subscription to Tussell in the event that you were interested in getting insight to the sort of thing I'm going to show you on this call. So what we're going to whiz through for the next few minutes is some insights into the public sector construction market. Barber ABI has a very broad view of construction as a whole, and Tussell has a very broad view of the public sector as a whole. So we're going to be focusing on the intersection of those two things. So I'm going to just go through some slides, which I hope you will find interesting. There is a Q&A function, please use it. I don't think I'll be able to kind of take the questions as I go along because I'm not capable of multitasking, but I will take any questions at the end. Very good. I'm just going to close this window and we'll get started. So for those of you that haven't come across Tussell before, first just a bit of context on us. We already do business with many of the top suppliers to government, including several big customers in the construction and engineering companies. So companies that have already come to us in order to get the market intelligence they need to get on the front foot in the public sector. Our data is so trusted and so reliable that the government is also a customer of ours. And people like the LGA, the Crown Commercial Service, Cabinet Office, several local authorities rely on our data to better analyse their own contracts, spend, and their relationship with counterparties like you. And then finally, when the media are writing about public contracts, it is almost entirely our data that they use in order to kind of talk about the market. So even if you are new to Tussell, we already have quite good credentials within the market. And this is just a brief explanation of how it is we make the data or the insights that I will show you over the successive slides. We essentially turn the open procurement data that the UK government already publishes and turn that into useful decision-ready data that you can use to build relationships and get on the front foot in the public sector. We cover the whole market, everything from central government through to kind of, small, further and higher education bodies. And everything that I show you today will originally have been based on some kind of invoice or tender or contract or framework, which was published originally through these official sources. And everything I show you in this kind of static presentation today has been taken directly from the online market intelligence platform, which is really what we sell to people. So it's all been taken from that. But if there was interest in going further, it would be about getting access to the market intelligence platform from which all this data is taken. So with all that in mind, let's actually get started and try and tell you half a dozen things that you might not know about your market opportunity in the wider public sector in the UK. So first, let's start with a bit of market sizing and segmentation. So the first thing that I'm going to address here is just the very simple question of how much does the UK public sector spend or procure from construction companies? And the answer is in this column on the right-hand side, that in 2021, the wider public sector spent a cool £23 billion on procurement from construction companies. And as you can see, that was a material increase of 29% over 2020, and the market has more than doubled in size since 2016. So it's not just a very big market, but it's also a market which is growing quite quickly, especially over the previous 12 months. So some indication that, whatever the kind of political views or the prevailing politics, there has been a boost in public sector construction procurement over the last 12 months. That is what this data is telling you. Next, we're just going to show you how you could use our product to actually kind of break it down. So if we were to take that, the aggregate of all that spend between 2016 and 2021, you can see that the biggest share of it was actually in local government, which spent £51 billion with construction companies, directly with construction companies since 2016. You can see that on the top left-hand corner. In the top row in the middle, you can see the top buyers of construction services, goods and works over that period. So Birmingham City Council spent 2.2 billion, followed by our customer Essex County Council with 1.3 billion, and so on and so forth. The top suppliers to local government in that period are on the top right-hand side. Wilmot Dixon, that earned 1.6 billion, followed by Waits, that earned 1.5 billion, and Ringway Jacobs, also on 1.5 billion. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that the average spend per supplier annually was about £4 million, and that there were just under 14,000 construction companies that the government procured services from over that period of time. In the middle, on the bottom row, you can see which were the top construction-related frameworks that local authorities used to go to market to procure these services. And on the bottom right is something quite powerful that you might not have seen before, which is the number of decision maker contacts, or what we like to think of as influencers in local government by job role, whose email address and telephone number and name and job role are accessible through our database. So we've got over 700 contacts, local government housing related contacts that you can look up in our database, over 300 property related local authority influencers. And by influencers, we mean people that are within 3 levels of the most senior level within a given local authority or public body. So think of this as a kind of dashboard with a kind of top slice or summary view of all the types of things you might want to know in order to make an informed decision about whether you want to use your limited resources to double down on local government, or let's say on central government. So central government, by contrast to local government, spent 22 billion directly with construction firms over that 5-year period. So less than half the amount spent by local government. And then I won't go through each chart in the same detail, but it follows exactly the same pattern. You can see the top buyers, the top suppliers, the frameworks which were used, the average spend per supplier, and the number of key decision makers. So 51 billion spent by local government, of which Birmingham was the biggest. Central government spent 22 billion, primarily through Homes England by a wide margin, then through the MOD, and then through Department of Transport. But of course, using our product, you could deep dive right down into, you know, the smallest buyers and the smallest suppliers. And then finally, one more kind of summary view on the NHS, which spent 7 billion directly with construction companies over that time period, of which the biggest procurer was Sandwell and West Birmingham Hospitals NHS Trust. And the top supplier to the NHS market or suppliers were Kier, Balfour Beatty, and Tilbury Douglas. But as you can see, they're earning much less on average from the NHS than is earned from either central government or from local government. So a kind of sense of the sorts of questions around market sizing and segmentation that you could do with access to this sort of market intelligence. But of course, no one is analysing things for the sake of analysing it. The outcome of all this market intelligence is really business development, or what we think of as helping you to find new opportunities. So what does that look like? This is a scatter chart showing the top 100 construction suppliers by public sector revenue over that 5-year period from 2016 to 2021. And on the vertical axis, you can see the aggregate amount that they earned. And on the horizontal axis, you can see the number of public sector bodies or counterparties or customers that each of these companies did business with. So if we just start with the 2 biggest ones at the top, over that period, Waits Construction earned 2.1 billion directly from the public sector. And it did that by doing business with over 111 buyers or public sector bodies over that period. On the other hand, Skanska Construction earned almost as much, a cool £2 billion, but it did that from only 34 buyers. John Graham, on the other hand, did business with 44 buyers over that period, but only earned 600 million over the same period. So the point of this data for you is that if you are a big company on this call, say you were someone at Waits, then this gives you a sense of the sorts of analysis you can do in order to benchmark yourself to the competition. If you were ISG, it would give you a sense of how you could drill down into Skanska's book of business in order to really do a deep dive into how that £2 billion breaks down across those 34 different buyers, and to use that to form a view as to where it is you want to compete with Skanska or Graham or Cormac Solutions, whatever it is. And if you were a much smaller construction company, which is nevertheless ambitious to increase your revenue in the public sector, then data like this would give you a sense of which are the prime contractors that you might want to talk to about partnering up and offering the niche solutions that they need to offer the kind of master services that they are going after. And on this basis, you would have a bigger chance of success with Waits because of the higher volume of customers they do business with. On the other hand, if it was going deep into things like kind of, Crossrail or HS2 or Transport for London, then Skanska might be a better bet. This chart is just showing you the public sector profile. So the bar is showing you the amount that these companies have earned directly from the public sector by year. And the line, the green line, is showing you the volume of public sector buyers that they do business with. And the kind of takeaway from this slide is that there are, it is interesting to us how many construction companies, including smaller construction companies, are going direct to the public sector. Clearly, a lot of that 21 billion pounds in public sector procurement from construction companies in 2021 goes through the primes, the tier ones, but it then trickles down to all the subcontractors that those tier ones work with to deliver those projects. And that is a perfectly good way for those smaller construction companies to get a piece of the action. But make no mistake, there are a lot of construction companies that are already going direct to the public sector in order to win that business. And you've got an example of a few of them here. So BDA Surveying Limited, which provides asbestos consultancy, just under 400K from the wider public sector in 2021 through 7 different buyers. Rothwell Plumbing Services, which is a kind of utilities specialist, earned 7 million from 6 public sector bodies. And H.W. Martin Safety Fencing Limited, which specializes in safety barriers, earned 10 million from the public sector. So you don't have to be huge in order to kind of focus your development directly on the public sector bodies, be it, going to a TfL or a National Highways, or going to your local authority. The purpose of this slide, for anybody that's ever kind of, prowled around the public sector and gone to things like Contracts Finder in order to, get a sense of what's going on in the market, what this slide is telling you is the number of relationships in grey that are visible by going to a procurement portal like Contracts Finder. So this is telling you that if you were to look up Oracle Solutions Asbestos Limited on Contracts Finder or something like Tenders Direct, you might be able to kind of piece together 7 relationships that they've got that are visible through contract awards. But because the threshold for publishing for a local authority or even a central government body to publish a contract award for construction works is over £5 million, and a lot of projects are below that threshold, by definition, a lot of those projects never really see the light of day through normal procurement channels, simply because they didn't meet the threshold for publication. So visible through something like Contracts Finder or Tenders Direct, you might find 7 public sector entities that Oracle Solutions Asbestos Limited does business with. But by going through Tussell and accessing the invoice level data, the actual invoices that the public bodies have had to publish, have had to declare, you could find another 6 public sector bodies that Oracle Solutions does business with. So to take another one, CU Lighting, if you were just to look them up in Tenders Direct, you might think that they just do business with 3 public sector bodies. But if you were to look up the invoices of £500 or more, which you can just kind of find by doing a kind of Google type search within Tussell's platform, you would find that they actually do business with a further 21 public bodies. So whatever information you think is out there is actually probably just a partial picture of what is really going on in the market. So if you want to see the full picture and join the dots, this is kind of evidence of why you might want to go to the next level down and browse a product like Tussell in order to see who your customers are really spending money with, or where your competitors are really earning their public sector revenue from, or what relationships are really out there that you may not be aware of. This slide, which I grant is very hard to read, is basically just a screenshot from our product. And the question that it seeks to answer was a real life question that came up on a demo that I was giving to a large construction company a few days ago. And the question that they asked me was, how many live frameworks are there for refurbishment and fit out that roll off within the next 24 months that I could make myself aware of in order to make sure that I'm ready for the kind of renewal of those frameworks, and I can get onto any that I'm not already on. So what I showed this prospect during the demo was within the online portal, which I referred to before, I clicked on the Frameworks tab here in the top navigation, and then I put in the keywords that we wanted to sweep for within those frameworks. So refurbishment and a couple different kind of ways of just talking about fit out, one with a hyphen, one without. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, I specified that I only want to see live frameworks with an end date within the next 24 months. And then I hit return, and what it told me is that there are currently 35 live frameworks that specifically mention those keywords and which roll off within the next 24 months that prospect would want to get onto. 35 frameworks worth £2 billion. And the next step for that prospect would be to go through these. They can see the specific contract end dates. They could see the specific kind of values of the frameworks. They could click into any of those frameworks to see the call-offs which have been awarded through them. And they could use that information to say, okay, we're already on 3 of these. Of the other 35, here are 10 that look as though they're in our sweet spot. And we'll make sure that our frameworks manager is kind of, preemptively getting ready to get onto those frameworks when they are renewed or extended, whatever it is. Okay, and just the last part of this, kind of showing you how you could access a few insights in order to make yourself more successful in the bidding process. So all of you on this call are hopefully aware of the fact that the government, especially at a local government level, is trying to spend more money with local firms and more money with SMEs. This is part of the so-called kind of social value agenda, and it is scheduled to get a booster as part of the kind of procurement reform bill, which was in the Queen's speech a few weeks ago. So what this chart is showing you along the top, taking Cheshire East Council as an example, is the proportion in green of Cheshire East construction spend that went directly to companies based in the same region as Cheshire East Council. So as you can see, Cheshire East has a relatively poor track record of spending money with local construction firms. And on the right, you can see the proportion of Cheshire East Council's overall construction spend that it spent with SME construction companies. And again, you can see that that Cheshire East is relatively bad at doing that. On the contrary, Suffolk County Council, which you can see in the bottom row there, spends more than 50% of its construction budget with local firms, and it spends about 50% of its construction company with SME construction firms. So what this means for you is that if you are a construction company, an SME that is also based kind of locally within Cheshire, then this is the sort of data you need to say, hey, local council, we are based locally, we are an SME, awarding that contract to us would be the right thing to do from the point of view of social value. And not only can we get the job done to the highest standard, but in awarding it to us, you would also be helping yourselves to kind of, to boost your social value. And that is important in itself, but it is also a metric that the people at Cheshire East Council are being held accountable to. So you can solve a double problem for them. You can help them to meet their construction needs, and you can also help them to improve their social value within their procurement spend. And on the other hand, if you were a kind of an aspiring supplier to Suffolk County Council and you're an SME, then you already know that Suffolk County Council is a good prospect to be trying to do business with, because they are already very geared up to award contracts to people like you. So whether or not you're going after a local council which is deficient in this area and you can help them overcome that problem, or one that is already very used to working with SMEs, the punchline is that through a few clicks in our product, you can get this insight and then you can use it to inform whether or not you want to kind of use up more of your shoe leather going after an opportunity with a council that is more like the profile of Cheshire East, or a council that is more like the profile of Suffolk. And on that same note, here we are comparing on the left the total construction spend over a 5-year period by Sunderland City Council with the construction spend over the same period by Bath and North East Somerset Council. And the reason that we showed these two side by side is that Sunderland City Council, their construction spend is relatively concentrated in one supplier, which in this case is ESH Construction Limited, with whom they spend £83 million, or 43% of their total construction budget over that period of time, followed by Northumbrian Roads and Henry Boot. Now, I don't profess to be an expert in the construction industry. I don't know what ESH provide. And to all of you who are in the industry, that might be a clear indicator that Sunderland City Council are buying something very specific. But the punchline for us is that anybody that is trying to win business from Sunderland City Council should go into that knowing that Sunderland already have what looks to us like a kind of preferred incumbent supplier. And if you're trying to displace them, that might be a bigger struggle. And if you want to go in as a subcontractor, then you know that to win business from Sunderland, ESH is the prime or tier one that you'd want to speak to. Bath and North East Somerset Council, on the other hand, are spending roughly the same amount of money with construction companies, but it is much more diversified. Instead of one supplier that accounts for more than 40% of the budget, their budget is split between Volker Highways with 16%, Skanska with 15%, BAM Construction with 14%, and so on and so forth. So those are the tier ones that you'd want to speak to if you want to do business with Bath and North East. On the other hand, if you want to actually compete directly with them and try and sell your services directly to the local council, then this might be evidence of the fact that this council is less kind of, is less entrenched with a specific construction company, and therefore might be more, might be easier for you to do business with directly. And then finally, we're just coming to the end here. This is just a simple slide showing that hopefully by now you've kind of understood that if you want to browse tenders, if you want to browse contract awards or frameworks or call-offs, or if you want to analyze the actual kind of invoicing being paid to your partners or your competitors or being paid by your prospects, then Tussell can kind of answer all of those questions. But then if you wanted to go really deep into a given project, let's say the £14 million contract for transforming cities that was awarded by Sheffield Council to CISC, or the £80 million project that was awarded by Ashford Borough Council to Stanhope for development at Elwick Place, or the £24 million contract awarded by the Department for Education to BAM for Fred Longworth High School main works. If you wanted to go really deep into those projects, that would be the kind of jumping off point to go from whatever you've discovered in Tussell back into Barbour ABI in order to get really deep insight into those projects. So think of Barbour as the tool that you would use to really look at construction in general and to go deep into those construction projects, and think of Tussell as the product that you would use to give you that kind of high level and in-depth view of specifically what's going on in the public sector construction industry. And then finally, what does this mean for you if you are a customer of Barbour ABI and you'd like to get kind of, access to the sort of data and insight and market intelligence that I've just kind of visualized for you on this call? What it means is that you would qualify for an automatic 50% discount on Tussell's list price, just by virtue of being a Barbour ABI customer. So if you were using Glenigan, for example, and you wanted to access Tussell, you would pay twice as much to access Tussell as you would do if you were a Barbour ABI customer. And you could either click on the link here in order to book a demo directly with one of my colleagues in order to get a live demo of the portal which we use to create this presentation. Or you can get in touch today with your account manager at Barbour ABI and say, hey, James, that looks interesting. I'd like to kick the tires on Tussell. Can you organize a meeting for us to take a look at it? Very good. That was it. You will be relieved to hear. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I can see that there's one question on the Q&A, and it's an anonymous attendee who is asking what areas of government are covered by the data. And the simple answer to that is that we cover the wider public sector. So everything, in short, everything from a massive construction project in central government through local government, NHS, blue light, further and higher education, and anything else you can think of. If it was published by the public sector, then it would be then the underlying data and the insight that we've kind of mined from it would be available through our product. Oh, there's another question. I'm so sorry to join this webinar late. Is that possible? Yeah, so I think this session has been recorded. The whole presentation will be accessible via Barbour ABI and via our website as well. So Vikas, just feel free to go through to your Barbour account manager, and he or she will be happy to give you this presentation. And if it whets your appetite to learn more about Tussell or to get a demo, just click on the link or ask your Barbour account manager to set up a meeting. Are there any other questions for me. We won't go on it for longer than necessary if there aren't. But I can answer any questions on the data, and I can answer any related questions that you would like to know the answer to. No, I don't think there's anything else. In that case, it just remains for me to thank my friends and colleagues at Barber ABI for having set up this meeting and for having convened all of you as an audience. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you who joined today. I hope it's given you some flavor of who Tussell is and what we do, and most importantly, how it could be relevant to you to win more business in the public sector by getting on the front foot, by just helping you to be a bit more strategic, a bit more proactive. If there's any follow-up, click on the link in the presentation or get in touch with your account manager at Barber ABI. Thank you very much for your time. Have a really good day. Cheers.